Okay, Sid, here are some of the stories that the kids wanted to hear about. So I'll go through these quickly. Hope you find some humor in them. I did have a really fun time as a kid. Did some things, some strange things also. My dad built me what I called a motor car at that time. It was a framed car with a small gasoline engine on the back of it. Was shaped like a Jeep, but we never got around to making the Jeep. So I drove around in this up and down the roads, realizing that the roads down at Fruitvale were paved and they were not much traffic on it. So one day we were going up and down the road, and a good friend of mine, Clifford Maines, he was riding it at times, and I was riding it. And I was riding it, and we're going down the road, and he's running alongside, and all of a sudden he tripped and fell in front of the car, and I ran right over him. Well, that was, what? Yeah, I ran over him. That must have hurt. Well, I probably think it did. He got up and leaped off, and limped off, I should say, and went home, never said a word. Wow, you could have been arrested. Yeah, probably could have been. You know, one of the things that was real interesting growing up is when I was young and just starting into high school, there was no TV. Now I know that's no TV. No TV. No TV sets, nothing to see. No, we didn't have that. Wow, how boring life. I guess. But in any case, in order to get TV, you had to have an antenna. But the first stations were very, very far away. The first one that was close to us was in Spokane, Washington. And Spokane was, I would guess 120 miles away, 140 miles away, something like that. And so my dad put up an antenna, and he had to make an antenna that was, I think, 75 feet high to get up to high enough to pick up the signal. Well, we did picked up the signal. We got the TV going. It was really interesting. When you first see the TV, they didn't have TV on all day. Usually it's on for 3 or 4 hours. Wow, that's not very long. You know, that's not very long. In any case, we turned that TV on, and the first thing we would see is this, what they call the test pattern. And the test pattern had an Indian in it. Not always fascinating me. I'll show you the picture of it out there. And that's the first thing you saw. And then it would come up with the TV programs. Now, the programming was pretty limited. There was a couple of mystery programs. There was some news. It all took about maybe 4 hours, and then it was off. I think from 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the evening. But everybody, you know, really was intrigued by it. Well, the thing was, nobody else in the whole area where we lived had a TV set. Oh, really? And now they were really hurting. Yeah, they were hurt. But what would happen is they'd come down to our house and come in and look and stare at that TV set because they'd never seen anything before. I like it. So that was kind of fun. Now later on, there's some more local stations in the Tri-Cities and stuff, and things got better. The TV tube itself, I think, was about 10 inches diameter. So you had to squint to see it. It was like a small computer monitor we have today. I had a dog named Mike, and he was really a great dog. He was a collie, and he was very, very protective of me. If my brother would come out and start wrestling with me, he'd start chewing his legs because he thought I was attacking him. In any case, Mike, one day, well, several days, he would go up the street with me as about 3/4 of a mile to the grade school where I went to school, called Fruitvale. Fruitvale? You have to be a fruit to be there? No, it's called Fruitvale because it was in the middle of a fruit farm area. And so I would many times ride my bike, sometimes walk to school 3/4 of a mile up, and Mike would follow me about, 1/4 of a mile up the road till you get to what's the first house on the right-hand side. The name of the people are Blue Bros. That's a tough one. I'll even try it. Yeah. And those two dogs were really mean, and they'd come out there and they'd bark at him like going to chew him up, and he'd run the other way and go home. So he never got all the way past there. Well, I think after a while he got really sick of that. I mean, we're talking 6 months, 8 months, and I'm riding my bike and he's following me, and I figured he's going to take off the opposite way. Those dogs came out, and that my Mike, he tore into those dogs, and those dogs went beat up away, and from then on he just pranced by their house with no problem, and he never came out and barked at him. So he got his due. Another thing he would do, Mike. Oh, Mike, yeah, I like the dogs like that, yeah. Well, old Mike was kind of interesting. He always seemed to know what we were going to do and where we were going to go. Oh, really? Did you tell him? No, we never told him. Well, we had a lot of places. We had a sugar beet ranch. Sugar beet ranch. That's what my sugar beet. What's a sugar beet? Well, sugar beet is a big beet. The brown in color on the outside, and it's not one you eat. Oh. And it's one they take and pulverize it and process it and make sugar out of it. And that and cane was the two sources of sugar. Oh. So it's a big deal there. Oh, there's a lot of people that grew those sugar beets. My dad grew the biggest one. He had 400 acres of sugar beets. Wow. Did he use horses? No. By that time, they had no horses. They had tractors, and he had a sugar beet digger and things, and he had a couple hired men who worked with him, and they would take the sugar beets to the place where they would dump them into train cars to take them to the place where they process them into sugar. Oh. Well, one of the stories, this isn't a funny story, but it's one that's really unusual. We one day, I remember this so well, what they do, the train cars were on the tracks, and they were empty cars, and they'd fill them up. Then when they'd fill them up, a main tractor train would come pick them and take them to a place that was about 40 miles away for the processing. In any case, what happened when you get there, the truck we were in, they'd lift the bed and tip it up and it'd dump into a trough in there, and then that trough would grab those beets and put them up into the train car. So when the train car got completely full, they had to move the train car down and move the next one in place. Oh, I see. Sounds simple. No, not very simple. What they had to do, they had a big pry bar that they put underneath, and then they loosen the brake on that particular car they're working with. Yeah, and they would get that car moving a little bit, and then they'd let it roll down to where they needed it, and they'd stop it, and they'd bring another one in its place and lock it into place. Well, still sounds pretty simple. Well, the only problem was one day when we were there, what happened was they were doing the same process, and the fella was loosened the brake, and he started the train rolling, but he fell underneath the car. Oh no, you're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. He fell under the car, and the train ran over both legs. Oh, that's awful. And it amputated his two legs. But the thing that was amazing was, because the train was so heavy, it just sealed up his legs so he didn't bleed to death. And when we got him to the hospital, and he lived. Boy, that's a terrible thing. I guess you'll remember that for a long time. I will. Another thing we did out on the ranch is go up to move the sprinkler pipe. What's a sprinkler pipe? I can't even say that. Yeah, well, a sprinkler pipe it was what watered the sugar beets. Oh, so they grew, yeah. And I had a job of doing that, and these are real long pipes, 40 feet long, and when they run for 12 hours at a time, we would do the changing, and we have to pick them up, and they were heavy and one end, and let the water drag out, and then move that pipe to the next section and hook it back up. So it was heavy work for sure. Well, old Mike, he'd always go with us. and he knew exactly where these places were. So one day we went and got in our Jeep. That's what we had, a Jeep with a carry-all thing on top of it, and it allowed us to take the pipe out to the field. And we got in the Jeep, and he knew right away where we were going. So, but it was a long way around to get to the field where we were at, probably a good mile if you took the roads. But he took off across country, jumping the fences. In fact, we checked him with an odometer on our car, and he was traveling at 40 miles an hour, not all the time, but that was his top speed. That's Sir Doug. Was he a greyhound? No, he was a collie. Oh. And so we get over there to where we're going to work, and there he is, standing there so proud-like and going, like he really was a smart one. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny. I like that story. And other things that we did a lot, there was a friend of mine, Joe Maggie, and we used to make our own rockets and bombs. Well, you talk a lot about explosives, don't you? Well, not usually. But we had, what we did, we made rockets. And we'd roll the paper and make tubes out of them and fill them up with the, well, it was gunpowder at that time, and put a big long stick on them. And Joe's dad wouldn't let us fire them off unless he was at home. A good idea, I think. Yeah, it probably was a good idea. So what happened was, we were in the garage filling up these little tubes with the gunpowder to make the rockets. And we took the little box that we had all the gunpowder, and it was like little petals. And we put it over 6 or 8 feet away. Well, somehow, Joe's younger brother, which didn't know any better, he decided to light a match. And the match sprung a spark into that little cup, and it shoot up and went into the big can that was full of the things. Oh, no. Yeah, oh, yes. And what it did is shot up there. We ran out of the garage, and it burnt. We had to run out and get a hose and spray up there because it burnt the ceiling in the garage. Wow. Bet you got in trouble. Oh. Yeah, his dad came home, and he wasn't a real happy camper. Well, good afternoon. As we promised, we're going to give you a review of what the heredity and the family history looks like for the family. The McBride family, that is. And to help do this, because I couldn't possibly do it, my favorite daughter, my oldest daughter, my prettiest daughter, is going to tell you a lot about things you don't know about the family history. This is Lori.
We find out from Ancestry a lot of different things that's very interesting about where we came from, the McBride family, and our family history. We found out that we actually went all the way back to Scotland, where we originally started. We found out with the, I'm going to say the name of it correctly, the Chaldean Jacobites, during their war, that they were warring against England, I guess at the time. That was during the 1745 is actually when that ended. It looks like Andrew was born, which is when he was 20 years old. He took a ship, and the ship's name was the Panthea, across to come to America. And it looks like he was totally by himself and alone. There's no other family members that were on that ship with him. It looks like he was the only one. Originally, I had thought that he had a cousin or something that came across with him, but I don't see it in the ship's ledger at all. I only see him. And it shows him as a weaver. Whether we know that he's a weaver or not, I'm not quite sure. But it shows him as a weaver in the ship log. I'm with our computer said.
I didn't know they had such a thing. I thought they were around all the time.
I know. No computers, no way of making sure that they kept
smoke signals, maybe.
Those logs, so we don't know exactly who he married or who his wife was. But he had, let's see, can you believe this? You're never going to believe what their son's name was. Leo Thomas. So it's his name. And Leo Thomas was born in 1833 in Jamesville, Ohio. Now, Leo Thomas married Sarah Price. Now, Sarah, her nickname was Fanny, because they called her Fanny is actually what they called her, but her name was Sarah Price. And Sarah, she was born in 1840. And they showed them with all the ledgers in Knox, Missouri. Now, poor Fanny, man. I'm going to tell you how many boys she had. I think they're trying for a girl and they couldn't have him. So sad. So, the first son, William, 1862. Not even 2 years later, she has another one, poor lady. John, 1864. Not even a year later. He doesn't even give her time to have another child. Behrman was born in 1865.
She didn't know how to learn how to cook. She didn't have time.
I guess she didn't have time. Always pregnant. But what this poor woman must have been thinking, no girls by this point even, right? Then she had Samuel in 1869. It looks like Samuel was a twin. And it looks like one of the twins died because it says no name and it has the same date down. So I think that he could have been a twin. Then they had Lafayette in 1873. So he gave her, what, 3 years between the next one, I guess. He gave her a little bit of time to grieve. Then they had Pearl, and that was 1874. So not even a year later again, poor woman. And then they had Harry, 1878. Oh, he gave her 4 years. 4 years in between that one. What happened there? And then he had, then she had Timothy. Well, can you believe it? 1882. Now, that is 9 boys in 20 years. Why did she die then? I can't imagine.
A lot of kids.
And all boys, no girls. She must have been trying for a girl. She had to have been trying for a girl. So
my uncle's name was Pearl, but he went by Uncle Purd. I think that was probably a good move. Yeah.
Purdy Purd. So, out of 9 boys, it looks like they had all 9 boys before they left Missouri on the covered wagons, the Oregon Trail. Who knows why they left? I thought at first it was the now the red song. Okay.
Back over here. I'm gonna
try this again.
Do something like this. I think sticking in my back and kill me. I gotta pick that out one of these days.
So I got it out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's
Okay, now where were we?
I don't know.
Oh, when they came over on the covered wagons, I guess. Okay. Your grandfather, Grandpa Tim. Let's see. There, that's what I was on right there. Okay, so it shows that. Okay, when they got over by the covered wagons, they were actually given a plot of land in 1890. The plot is called Pilot Rock. And you said you recognized that name. Pilot Rock, you were saying it's near Pendleton.
Pendleton, Oregon, yes.
Pendleton, Oregon. So, the youngest of the children, again, Grandpa Tim, married Ethel. So it's Grandma Ethel that he married. And he married her, and they lived in Weston. And that's where they were actually living. And they had one son. His name was, can't imagine it not being Thomas. Thomas Leo, no, it's Lawrence Leo Truman. Well, Leo Truman or Thomas, one or the other. Lawrence Leo Truman, and he was born in 1911. And Lawrence Leo Truman was one of the only...
I wasn't there at the time.
He was the only son born of Grandpa Tim and Grandma Ethel. I don't know, probably because he grew up with so many brothers and sisters. Not brothers and sisters, take that back. So many brothers. He said, I'm going to have a son that doesn't have to share. I'm sure that's what it was, because he's the youngest, too. So I can imagine what he got all the hand-me-downs. You know that. So, okay, so then he married Grandma Ethel. Now, I called him Dadgy, his son, Lawrence Leo Truman. That's who we call Dadgy. But Dadgy, he used to tell these great stories, and I'd sit there at his feet, and I'd listen to his stories. I'm like, tell me the stories about the bear. So they would go on these big hunts, and they'd hunt for bear, and he'd hunt for elk, and I'd be all excited about hearing about this. But I guess back in the day, the Indians, they actually had farmers when they used to have their crops. They would have all the people who were the help was the Indians in full Indian dress and everything. And they'd go out and they'd hunt for bear. He'd tell me all the stories about the bear. Not really sure how many were totally true. I think he made up some things about the huckleberry eating along the way. But you tell me these stories about hunting bears.
They had about 15 guys with them hunting bears, so it's quite a thing. I have a picture. Hopefully I may add that into this later on so you can see it.
You know, I remember a story too, him telling about somebody having a heart attack while they're up in the mountains hunting for bear and elk. And the guy had a heart attack, so they had to cart him out. So I loved that story when I was young, too.
I guess he didn't grin and bear it. I don't know what happened, but that's
Of course. I always wanted Dad to bring me back a baby deer. I said, you kill the mom, you kill the dad, you make sure you bring back the baby. I wanted a baby deer. I'd look for that baby deer every time he'd come back from elk hunting. Never got my baby deer. Got some old head that was put in the garage.
elk and a deer are two different things, but that's all right. Okay.
Well, whatever. I just wanted a baby. That's all I wanted. So then, let's go back to Lawrence Leo Truman. He marries Maxine Lavina, and her name was Geis at the time, and she was the second child of Geis's.
Albert
and Flossie Geis. And they married, and they lived in Mount Freewater. They had 2 sons. The first one was his brother Dick, his name is Richard. Not Thomas. They didn't name him Thomas. I wonder why.
I don't know.
They didn't name you Thomas either.
I think they ran out of names. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So brother Dick was born in 1939. I almost said 1839. That would have been good. He married Caroline Duff, and they had 1 child. I wonder how long these 1 children are going to last. 1 child, and that was Marcy. Marcy was born in 1962. She's older than me. She's my older cousin. And they lived in Reading. They stayed in Reading for a long time. And then they had Stephen. Actually, his name was Gerald Stephen McBride. And he was born in what? Do you remember the year he was born?
1946, or 1846, one of the two.
1946.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
And you lived all over the place.
I lived, well, Fruitvale, Oregon is the main place I lived.
Fruitville? Fruitville.
As Sid says, you lived with the fruits, huh? Yeah, I did, yes.
And where he had a sheep. I remember the story of the sheep.
Yeah. Bad, yeah.
The sheep that followed you
It's
around.
a bad story.
Yeah, I remember all the stories. It was great stories. But then you moved away to go to college to Oregon State?
University of Oregon.
University, U of O, I'm sorry.
Oregon State.
I know, sorry, whatever. So anyway, so then he comes back and he marries Marianne Odoms. And the interesting part about the Odoms side is their side of the family comes the same side of Scotland as my father's side. You might have been related. That explains my sister.
Could be. Could be.
Anyway, it's a little bit of inbreeding. No, anyway, so then Gerald Stephen has 4 kids. Lori, we won't say what year she was born because that'll tell you her age. And then Allison Marie, and then Evan Thomas. There we go, Thomas again. And then Matthew Scott. At least we got somebody else in there. And they were born in 1970, 1972, and 1974.
We didn't have time to have 9, so we just wanted to
stop at that. Well, because you had girls, you know.
Yeah,
if you had boys, you may have changed your mind.
Right.
And then, okay, and what? Anything else you want to tell?
I think that's about it.
By the way, I have a grandson named Thomas too, so he's got a Thomas name also.
Well, I know that's a lot of people that we want you to memorize this because there will be a test sent out to you. So
just remember the name Tommy, Thomas, Leo Thomas, whatever. You'll get it right. You'll have somebody in our lineage, some name, perfect name, because you can't forget the name Thomas. It's in everybody's name.
Well, thank you very much, Lori. That's really fun to know about, and this will pass on to future generations. And we plan on you carrying on this so we can carry this so your children will know what's happening. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much.